Past 7.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I have an announcement to make. The applicant for the Broadbridge Avenue, Teakwood Avenue property is not here. So as such, we cannot allow the public to speak. They're going to be here next month. At our request, we asked for more information, and they'll bring it next month. And you're more than welcome to come back. Or you could submit your questions to Kelly. But in all fairness to everyone, we can't allow one part to speak without the other one being here. Okay, so I don't want to waste anybody's time if you didn't want to, stay. All right, so let's open this meeting. Stratford Inland Wetlands and Watercourses meeting. What time is it? 7:08 p.m. All right, we did away with that. Approval of minutes from last month's meeting. Everybody had a chance to look at them? Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by John. Joe, second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Old business. Well, we don't got to do that. All right, the next order of business, application number 2022-17, construction of a 33,000 square foot commercial building with associated infrastructure and grading at 8085 Wood End Road. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Okay, sir, come forward.
Sorry, I thought I was going to have a minute with the public hearing to get my stuff set up, but for the record, I'm Brian Carey with Land Tech, Director of Environmental Services with Land Tech, with offices in Westport, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Core 1 Industrial. Let me just see 1 second. Do you guys have an easel, or can you see this? The strong breeze doesn't come through, I think. Is there? Oh, okay.
There's a pile of them, but do they work? We don't know.
What'd you say? Well, everyone's so out of practice because it's all online now, too. Again, for the record, Brian Carey with Land Tech. Basically, the application is for the proposed construction of a 33,000 square foot warehouse with ancillary parking and stormwater drainage. As part of the application, we are looking to cause permanent impacts to 0.025 acres of wetlands. There's a small little parcel of a pocketed wetland on the property that's actually in the northeast corner of the site, or northwest corner of the site. As part of the permanent disturbance of that, we would actually be doing a 3-to-1 wetland mitigation ratio, so we'd actually be increasing the total amount of wetlands on the site by a 3-to-1 ratio. The numbers should be in your application. We provided substantial application materials. I have additional materials for just disbursement on basically going from Conservation Administrator Kelly Kerrigan's comments. We have provided a thorough response. But basically, the application is There'll be disturbance in the wetlands, in that small pocketed wetlands. The area has been historically filled as the surrounding area was prior to, you know, the 40s and 50s. So it's never actually been improved with any type of structure. It's on the corner of Wood End Road and Old South Avenue. It is located in a commercial industrial area. And again, there has been, which I'm going to submit to you tonight, phase 2 on the property. So there is remediation that needs to occur prior to the construction process. Basically, the fill material has levels of petroleum impacts from TPH and polyaromatic hydrocarbons. The remedial plan is to try to cap most of that under the proposed building, because there is an extensive amount of fill that needs to be brought into the property. The site, since it's been disturbed over time and has been filled, is basically a monoculture of invasive vegetation. Anything that is out there is pretty much tree of heaven, common reed, Phragmites, porcelain berry. It just has everything. So the idea is just to go in there and really restore the site by increasing the wetlands again, and replanting, and then doing a 3 to 5 year monitoring program for the treatment of invasives, but also, which is we are submitting tonight, is a wetland restoration and monitoring plan that's in a little bit more detail than what is shown on the plans. They actually hopefully have a tenant that's interested in the building. They do require, one of the difficult things about the design is they do require a loading dock. So I know there's probably this detail on here, which it's not a normal thing to see. It's actually, this is grass. It's reinforced pavers. It's actually like a geotextile mesh that is laid down and then to basically backfill the stone and then plant it over. The turning radius, because of the property is so tight for the trucks, that we did need to install this. At the bottom of the grade will be planted, but at the bottom of the grade will be planting coastal meadow grasses, and then there's a full wetland mitigation plan with all the notes on it. So again, we are looking to just remove this one area of wetland. You know, there's a function and values report that we've submitted. This really want to construct this building and hopefully get the tenant in there. Other approvals, we do need a variance from planning and zoning. If this commission were inclined to approve it, we would still need to go for a variance because of the setbacks to wetland.
Any questions by the commissioners? Yes, Joe?
Yes, Mr. Carey.
Yes.
So you're proposing to fill about 1,000 square feet of existing wetland and then create a wetland. So first of all, where on the map would this created wetland be?
So if you look, there's actually a hard line here.
Uh-huh.
These are actually mapped wetlands. They're all mapped as Dorkins, which is a disturbed wetland type
Okay.
that will turn into wetland soil based on hydrology. But there's a solid line here. So the idea is to kind of, this area will be created, and we're also going to kind of smooth out the other wetlands by creating more area.
Uh-huh.
We did look at the hydrology, just by excavation and grading, we should be able to get down enough into the groundwater regime and with surface water inputs that would maintain the wetland hydrology.
I see. So you're going to just dig below the water table. And will that be brackish water or fresh water?
So
Or?
it's fresh water, but we're also providing, the idea is also to import basically a wetland type of soil spec.
Uh-huh.
So if you look at the soil characteristics, we'll actually find the soil, and that soil, between the soil that will place there and the hydrology of the site, it should form a wetland. That's why we also, the conservation administrator has asked us to provide a monitoring plan. So we will, over 3 to 5 years, be monitoring that, and if there's certain inputs or timeframes that we're not hitting for the wetland creation, restoration, we'll basically come back and adjust that to make sure that we are hitting those requirements. We didn't do a full, we didn't, it's probably likely tidal influence, but not at a point where it would create, some issue with the vegetation we've spec'd out. It's, the vegetation is all in the wetland style vegetation. If we were to see something that was more indicative of a tidal type of issue, we could change the planting plan, but that we have not noticed that. And we basically figured that out by the existing plants that are on site. So if we were to see coastal plants, we would know that there's probably some coastal influence from the groundwater, but that's not the case.
And I would imagine that Phragmites would want to invade that area.
This has, it's kind of stunted, but no, it's not. It's not, I mean, for this, yeah, I mean, that would be part of our monitoring program to make sure that frag doesn't become a monoculture of Phragmites.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yes, I'm just curious, looking at the map, it looks like adjacent to it, there's a whole significant area that's undeveloped as well.
That's correct. Directly south to that, there's a couple tidal channels in there.
Is that all privately held, or
That
is
is
that?
privately held. It's not, I believe it's owned by the property to the west, direct west.
And pretty much in the same,
That's not filled to this degree. That's actually still, there's actually some open tidal channels in that area. If you can look at the photo, you can kind of make them out. It's a bit of a.
so that's more of a vibrant wetlands? as
Yes,
opposed
correct.
to,
Yep.
This really sounds like it's more of a dirt bowl.
I would, unless you're going to vote on it tonight, I would suggest just to look at it, and it really is adjacent to a bunch of industrial parcels. The town actually owns the property to the east on Old South Avenue. There's a former crushing facility. They still own it. I mean, the town owns the properties. And then to the west is actually owned by our client as well.
And with the soil that has to be brought in, I saw in Ms. Kerrigan's note that that's going to be tested.
Yeah, so we would, because the site, limitations of the site, Oh, yes, so any fill brought into the site would have to be tested prior to coming in. The Phase 1, actually, they haven't put the full remedial action plan together, but the Phase 2 I provided does discuss about imports of fill. Anything that'd be coming into the site would be clean and tested.
Yeah, Mr. Carey, because of the area, in this area, it's notorious for flooding down at that
Yep.
area. Are anything that you're gonna address here is gonna try to help alleviate some of that flooding, or?
So the area floods just because of the elevation and the obvious adjacent tidal marsh. So the town did do a flood project on Access Road, but this project, basically, we're raising the building out of the flood zone. You know, while we're not adding anything to the issue, we're certainly not correcting the elevation problems with the storm sewer in that area. I mean, that's almost technically infeasible as far as you know, this one project.
Any other questions?
So the current elevation of the grade, so the building, I believe, is at elevation 14. So the building's at elevation 15, and the site where is at 8.5, so about 6 feet, 7 feet. Almost 8 feet, yeah. The site will come up about 8 feet. So that was one of the challenges, is to basically be able to fill the site enough to get it out of the FEMA regulations while also keeping, you know, you don't want the driveway, pitch of the driveway. No, so we have enough coal text that we placed within the fill material that it will retain the water on site, and then anything else will be kind of graded down to this wetland area. But you shouldn't see any, there shouldn't be excessive water coming out of Sunset Avenue from this project. The bottom elevation of the Coltech is, so it's sitting at 10 feet, so it's, oh, I'm sorry, no. Bottom elevation, yeah, it's at 10 feet, so it'll be within 5 feet of fill, so, you know, basically they'll fill, up to, we'll put the Coltex in and backfill it, the bottom, so it'll be 10 here, 8, basically looking at, about 4.5 meters. Better than we've ever done. I could definitely get you a better answer on that. Here's the Coltex system. This is the detail for it. It doesn't have that actual elevation on it though, but we can absolutely provide that. Detail. I'll just hold that. That's it, unless anyone has any more questions.
Oh, there.
This is actually just, there's some contradictions about your company name and address. So on page, a letter back from Shannon Kearney, she spells it Land Tech with a K, it's pretty minor.
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
This letter back from Shannon Kearney, wildlife biologist.
Oh, yeah, that's from the DEP.
So that's fairly minor. But your application, your address is 5418, and everywhere else it's 518.
We do have two separate addresses.
Oh,
but
you do?
Yeah, but I'll fix
Well,
that.
no, it's just confusing, so I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Okay.
Commissioners, do you feel you have enough information to vote on this tonight? You don't think so? Yeah. So we can table this to next month?
Would it-
Brian, I think we're gonna, yes, you want to
I
speak,
was
Mr.
just
Chair?
gonna suggest that maybe it would make sense to walk the property a little bit to get a
Yeah.
better sense of,
Good idea. I think we're gonna table it, Brian, till
No
you get the
problem.
information, you know, and I think that's the prudent thing to do at this point.
I just want to clarify, so though, but it would not be going to a public hearing or?
No, we don't need
Okay.
it.
That's fine. Thank you.
Brian, I'll coordinate with you for a site walk.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm sorry, we need a motion to table.
I make a motion to table.
Motion by Mr. Waite,
I'll second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. We're gonna go right into these now?
Yes.
Should we call them one at a time, or?
This one we're tabling because they didn't give us information on time.
Okay, so
And then we
Bluebird's
can,
next?
and then we can start with Bluebird. But announce that we're tabling.
Okay. We are going to table the application by Paula Mollica versus Inland Wetlands and Watercourses. They did not provide the information needed, so that has to be tabled. The next one is Bluebird Prestige. We need a motion to table that. Who wants to make a motion?
Make a
Motion by
to
Mr.
table.
Chess, second by John Waite. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Attorney Stephen Bellis, and I have the privilege of the next three matters, and they're all, no, they're all kind of related. I don't know if you remember when I came before you last month. We have a global settlement with my clients and the town of Stratford. As part of that global settlement, we go to each commission that had a case pending or cases, and we go before them and we present our settlement offer to those commissions. So tonight's your night. I have 3 properties and 2 cases that were involving the Wetlands Commission of Stratford. So what I'd like to do is I'll just take them one at a time. I have my experts here. I'll just put it on as though although, you know, like it was an application, but it's not an application. But I want you to feel comfortable that you know everything. Ask the experts whatever questions you have. And then at the end of each of the 3 of them, I hope that you'll agree that you'll recommend the settlement that we have shown you. And then, just so you all know, it then goes to the court. And Attorney Sullivan and I would go to the judge, and he would look at to see what we did, that we did it correctly, and then he has to approve it as well. So I will just take you through them. I think it's just easier if I do it property by property, if that's okay with you. The first one and the most simple one, I believe, is called 795 James Farm Road. So 795 James Farm Road
the-
currently has an approval.
Attorney Bellis, just give them the name of the case, because I think it's 500
Okay.
North.
That one is,
Do you want to go in order?
If we could go in order, but we have also, for 795 James Farm Road, there are no inland wetlands impacts,
No.
and it's not in the upland review, so I am preparing a staff memo, so we
Okay.
don't, if you'd like to go over it, we can. but,
oh, yeah,
but
I
it's-
just was
it's
going
not
to tell
subject to
you.
this
Yeah,
commission.
the, I have to send it to your commission. There's no
So
jurisdiction.
Steve, Kelly's made a determination that she can issue an administrative permit, so you can tell them what we're doing, but
Yeah.
that one doesn't have.
Yeah, I don't have to go through it in as much detail.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So on that 795 James Farm Road, we are proposing a 3-lot subdivision right on James Farm Road. It's a 15-acre parcel. Each of those lots only take up 1 acre, so there's approximately 13 acres. No, I can't do math. Approximately 12 acres that's going to be donated to the city of Stratford as open space. And that's where the wetlands is more than your jurisdictional limit. It's way on the other end of the property. So Kelly has advised me that it's outside the jurisdiction line. So I just want you all to know that I referred it to you, and thank you very much. I told you that one was going to be easy. Okay.
If I could just comment, the inland wetlands are over 500 feet away from the
Yeah.
proposed subdivision, so they're well out of our jurisdiction. So I will be preparing a letter stating as such. You're not getting a permit per se.
I'm
You're
not
just
getting
getting
a
a letter
permit.
saying
It's a
that-
referral.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay? So that's number one, 2 to go. Second one, I call it 170 Orinoco Road. It's called Bluebird Prestige versus the Stratford Inland Wetlands Commission. So this one has a history whereby years and years ago, this commission approved this exact project. It's an 11-unit single-family homes on the property. There's no wetlands on this property at all. There's no wetlands on the property. However, it's adjacent to a golf course, and on the golf course, there is we call it a water course drainage area, drainage ditch, that has a little new area that was found adjacent to it, a small area of wetlands. So what I call this is a review in the upland review area. There's no wetlands on the property. We're not building anything that's going to touch or impact the wetlands, but you do have the right to review it because it's in your upland review area. So with having said that, I'm going to first introduce Bill Kenny. He's the soil scientist, and he will explain to you how he flagged these wetlands or where the flags were, so you know where they are. And then I have the engineer, Manny Silva, and he'll just show you the 11 single-family homes. So as I said, this same application came to you, and you're saying, well, why are we hearing it again? It was so long ago it lapsed. Okay, so it had been approved by wetlands, had been approved by zoning. The owner never built it. It's probably been 10 years, so it's been a while. But I just want you to be familiar with it and make sure you're comfortable with it, so I have these experts. So let me get started with Mr. Kenny. I think he's if we can start with him. Mr. Kenny, please. Should all have packets, right? So this one is the 170 Orinoco.
Good evening. I'm Bill Kenny. I'm the principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield, Connecticut. I am a professional wetland scientist and soil scientist, and we were retained to help with this project. Our work included both checking the property for inland wetlands and watercourses, as well as looking both on the site and checking areas adjacent to the site. And then we also reviewed the proposed development and evaluated that with the potential for having an impact on inland wetlands and watercourses. So first, the property is here. You have Orinoco Lane on the bottom of the page. North is up on this property. You have the Town of Stratford Firehouse immediately to the east, residential properties to the west, to the south, and Orinoco Golf Club to the north. No wetlands or watercourses were found on the property itself. There is a drainage channel that runs along the east side of the fire department property. That water for that comes out of a pipe that is under the golf course, so a lot of drainage from decades ago when they built the golf course collected drainage and discharged it at this location, and it looks as if they improved that channel to help with flow down to Oronoke Lane, and then it goes in a pipe where it goes under Oronoke Lane and comes out on the other side and continues south. Associated with that is a small area of wetland that appears to have been altered when they did the work for this channel and the piping. So there's some remnant wetland soil there. There's fill around it in different areas, and that wetland appears to be drier than what it was before they created that channel and put the pipe in. That channel's probably drawing water away from that small pocket of wetland. But that is about 100 feet from the property, the wetland itself. The channel is probably 125 feet away, 30 feet away. You can see your 250-foot review area extends onto the property due to that drainage channel and that altered wetland. This is a forested area at that location. So this is at a different scale, this drawing, but again, you have Oronoke Lane here. There's a fire department, fire building is right here. That drainage channel is off to the right here, off to the east, with the small area of wetland that's associated with it. So the proposal includes a road coming into this area, and then 11 homes, 11 single-family homes. Manny Silva, the engineer, will provide you with more information on the details of the drainage design, but generally the water is being collected and through catch basins and other drains, roof leaders. They're picking up water from the roofs, from the road, from the yards, collecting that water, treating that water, detaining that water so that there's not impacts to flooding or impacts to water quality. And it generally is directed down to this area. There's subsurface detention system in the ground here where everything is picked up, piped down into here. And so that's all been designed in accordance with your drainage manual and the state stormwater quality manual. And due to that design, the fact that we're not doing any activities within the wetland itself, the wetland is a good 90 to 110 feet away from this development, and all the water is being collected and directed to this area and being treated. It's my professional opinion that this development will not adversely affect that wetland or watercourse that's to the east of the property. Be pleased to answer any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
That's the first house at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to call Manny Silva. He's the engineer on this project. He can go over the details of the storm drainage and any questions you have.
Good evening, Manny Silva from Rose Tizo and Company. I'm the civil engineer on the Oronoke project. As Bill had stated before, this is a development for 11 houses. If you pick it up, this basically is an existing house here. We're just going to spin it to the side, so it's the house will face the new proposed driveway. So you come off Oronoke Road. It's going to be a private driveway with a cul-de-sac on the end, and then some single-family houses, kind of circumventing that. The drainage itself, so currently the site is kind of an open field or lightly wooded area that drains to the south, and then some of it kind of drains off this way, but majority kind of drains to the south. So what we did was we put a under drain with some yard drains at key points, and that's basically a perforated pipe underground with some gravel all the way to the surface. So that we'll do is take the water that's coming off of these yards and collect that into this pipe, help infiltrate that into the ground in a lineal fashion, and then that comes into about 500 lineal feet of underground 4x4 gallery, which are like underground tanks that will hold a volume of water underground and help that infiltrate into the ground also. I don't like having my back turned to you guys. So what we have is some catch basins on site, and that will be, and roof leaders, which will tie in either to these catch basins here or the under drain that's in the backyard here. And that is part of our treatment train. We have snouts in our catch basins that will collect floatables within the catch basin itself. And then from there, this road drainage or driveway drainage will come to a vortex unit, which is a swirl concentrator. It takes the water, spins it, slows it down. It allows all the floatables, oils, to stay inside the chamber. And then that slowing down of the water velocity lets particles that are suspended in the water fall to the bottom and collect at the bottom of the chamber. And then that goes into the gallery system, where the water is then further filtered through the gravel and sand that's underneath the system itself and into the water table. There is an outlet control structure in case of very large storms. So it would be able to allow some water to go into the town system in Oronoque Lane. That control structure is right here. As you can see, it's a weir wall with about an 8-inch hole in the bottom of it. So that 8-inch hole is the only thing that's the only water that's coming out on a regular basis. And then there's an emergency overflow, which is a little notch at the top that's 2.7 feet wide. So during construction, that's basically their drainage system. So during construction, we don't want to allow any sediment or contaminated soils to come off the property. So what we have surrounding the property is a silt fence, which is basically a geofabric fence that has stakes that's black, stands up, and then we bury a little bit of it under the soil so that the water can't escape underneath it, and that will filter out any water that is washed out from the site during construction. So that'll filter out any mud or sand or any debris that's coming off the site, so it stays on our property, doesn't go onto any neighboring properties. Then we have a anti-tracking pad so that any trucks or dump trucks don't track any mud into the Oronoque Lane. It's a pad of some large riprap stone. As the trucks run over it, it agitates the wheels and all that mud, and it falls out into that pad and not into the road. The catch basins themselves all have silt sacks, which is that black geofabric that is configured in a way with a ring around it, so that once those basins are in, and say there's a rainstorm on site, the water falls into there, and then that mud and debris gets caught in that sack itself. And then once we have the site paved and the grass is growing and everything's stabilized, we pull those sacks out, and then all the whole drainage system is clean like it was intended to as new. One thing I didn't go over is the numbers real quick. I know these are boring, but I got to do it. So the drainage system will not just treat the water and increase the water quality of the water coming off of this site. We also are going to reduce the volume of the water coming off the site. So at the 5-year storm, we reduce it by 2%. 10-year storm, we're reducing by nearly 20%. So that's 20% less water than there is today on there will come off the site in the future after it's been constructed. And at the 25-year storm, we're reducing it by 0.3%. And then, so basically, I'll go over the ornamental quickly. These are the details of the soil erosion control. Here's our sequencing and how to use the best management practices and who's responsible for what on the site monitoring, when to actually change out some of these silt sacks, and how to go about the sequencing of the project. Then we have an ornamental landscaping plan. As you can see, we have some street trees here, some shade trees along the roadway, some smaller ones along the main driveway coming up because there's not a whole lot of room on one side. And the plant list itself is about 9 pin oaks, 13 sugar maples, 78 arborvitaes for the screening here along the driveway. And for ground shrubs, we have junipers, and then some a small bush that's called patenda fruits. I don't know how to say it. It's a bush, but it's a flowering bush that we have here for ornamental in front of the sidewalks. Again, here's the details, basically on how our utility connection sewer, here's the galleries, how it looks like underground, so the water fills up these and it gets infiltrated into the ground. It's open bottom, and there's slots on the sides to let the water leak out. This is the snout that allows the water to come into the catch basin, and the water gets discharged by going under and into the pipe, but yet all the floatables, bottles, and oils get stuck here, floating up in outside of that snout. And then there's some basic details on curbing and sidewalks and handicap ramps. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them. I'm happy to answer them. But as far as the wetlands, we don't have any discharges or anything going to the wetlands.
I just have one quick question. I think Mr. Kenny mentioned that the wetlands is actually, in comparison to the surrounding areas, higher than, or is, what's the elevation from the wetlands to the actual development?
So the development is up at, here, we're up at 272, and I think the wetland is here further to the south, and it's in a somewhat of a gully behind there's the firehouse here, and then it's kind of in a gully here behind the firehouse, coming off the golf course. I don't know if it's necessarily higher than us, but it's not like a ravine. I mean, I think there probably is a depression there. That's where the wetland is flowing. But then that continues to a culvert all the way down, and it kind of parallels James Farm Road along that side there.
Just curious, with the silt fence, you say that it keeps out all this debris, basically, because you embed it within the soil.
Correct.
So what percentage does it actually keep out? Just curious. It has no relevance in terms of accepting or not accepting. Or I know this is an accepting type of situation, but just curious in terms of science, because nothing like this is 100%. What is the real percentage in terms of filtration?
As far as a filter, what we're going to use is silt fence, as you can see here, that's kind of returned and is buried down, and then there's a hay bale behind it. So when you
there's a particle size, right? Silt fence is not it's porous.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's with the size of the pores, how much does it truly retain in terms of debris? Debris is lots of different sizes, and I'm sure there's a whole science around this, but just trying to get...
as to say there's like some kind of micron level that it filters out. I can't say for sure, but what it does is that when you see that mud, that turbid water coming against the fence, the other side, it comes out pretty clear. And then what happens is that turbidity or that material that was usually like silts or clay gets caught on the face of the fence, and you can see when it dries out that it's all there on a layer. Right. So as to say like quantitatively how much is the percentages, I couldn't say, but I know that as an engineering practice, it's what we do. Right? Yeah, it's basically what we do, and besides like building a wall and retaining all the water.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and we don't want to do that.
Right, you don't want to keep all the water on site. Right. You want the water to be able to go to the natural flow, but you just don't want that sediment coming through.
Yeah, just for my own learning. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I just have a few comments and questions that I have not yet provided to you folks, and I do apologize for that, but I just wanted to go on the record, and I will follow up with an email to you as well. I'm just going to read through them pretty quickly. The last one is the one that I'm most concerned with. The rest are mostly comments. I didn't see the limit of disturbance depicted on the site plan, so either I missed that, or if you could just make sure that's on there. I'm asking that you reconsider perhaps the use of sugar maples so close to roadways. They're typically not very salt tolerant. I know this is not going to be a public roadway, but I want the trees to survive regardless, so just to think about that. Are there any town trees that you're potentially going to propose for removal along the Orinoco Road town right-of-way? And if there are, obviously you'll have to let us know at some point. Not super pertinent right now. The plan set depicted, there was one sheet that depicted a 4-story apartment building. If you're not proposing that, just make sure that's out of the
Yeah.
plan set, obviously.
that's
I think that's obvious, but you never know.
Yeah.
And then currently the way that the site topography, the way that the site is situated in relation to the wetland, there should be some overland flow currently feeding that wetland, and I know you're retaining all of the stormwater, you're proposing to retain all this stormwater on site, which would, in theory, that water would not be going toward this wetland. So if you could explain some of your calculations and to make sure that that wetland is still receiving some hydrology.
I think Bill can answer that.
Okay.
You want me to answer it, Bill? Yeah. So, I mean, the water, the wetland as a system, right, is, majority of it is being fed by this, I want to say it's pervious area, but it's a clear golf course, cleared out golf course that concentrates water off to the, so here's the golf course, starts here. So this is, even though there is some water that comes off of this site here, the majority of this is being fed from the golf course area to the north, and it comes down and then feeds into this culvert down here. So even though this local area might be not getting this anymore because we're collecting that, this overflow then comes to the town system and then comes out to a culvert right here underneath the stream, which from here down means there is a slight reduction because we want to reduce the amount of water that's actually coming downstream for flooding purposes. But we're not necessarily starving. I wouldn't say we're necessarily starving the wetland itself from any substantial drainage area because we're not that much different in elevation from here to here. But I think the majority of this water is coming from the north and the west from the golf course itself, from those fairways and things like that.
Okay, so once your proposed system overflows into the town system, that does reconnect back to this water body?
Right, there's a
Okay.
culvert here. There's a culvert here, down here,
Okay,
and that pipe comes into that culvert.
thank you.
Yep.
So to summarize on this one, again, your commission had approved this years ago. It has expired. There's no permit that we're seeking, but we're presenting it to you because there is an upland review area. It's within that upland review area. And as Mr. Kenny said, that there's no adverse impact on the wetlands in that upland review area, and that's the standard we have to show. So having said that, I think that this would meet, even if it's not an application, but if it were an application, it would meet your regulations for an approval. I think that's all I have on this Oronoke project. I have one more to go through, and that'll be it. Are any questions on this one before I move on?
Yes, sir. This would pertain to Mr. Silva. He mentioned in the drainage system that there was a sediment trap, right? So to filter out the sediment so that it wouldn't block the whole drainage system, so that the drainage system would drain. So I would imagine that over a period of time, there's going to be a buildup of sediments, and that's going to have to be cleaned out. So whose job would that be?
Yeah, so that's a good question. This is a homeowners association because of the way it's zoned. So the homeowners association would be responsible for the maintenance, and this would be a maintenance issue. It would be put in the public offering statement, and it would be put in the declarations of the condominium documents, that it would be part of the condo's responsibility, not the homeowner. Good question.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
the emergency runoff that you talked about, where does that run off?
I'm sorry, sir.
He talked about an emergency runoff.
I don't know if you used the word emergency. I'm sorry.
For the.
Manny Silva again. So,
The
kind of answer his
emergency
question
overflow.
and yours.
The emergency overflow.
Right, there's an emergency overflow that goes over that little weir wall inside of, this is all happening underground. No one's
Okay.
gonna see this. It comes up to a level in that weir wall that it starts to spill over. But this is in a chamber underground, and then that connects to a pipe into Orinoco, and then it goes down into that brook as it crosses underneath Orinoco. So the drainage in Orinoco Lane right now has some catch basins that connect to a pipe that goes underneath Orinoco that picks up that stream that comes down, or that brook, intermittent brook. So right here is that control structure. So once that gets to a certain level, it overflows, connects here and comes down, and then into that brook that goes down, and it parallels James
Why would
Farm.
it overflow if it's properly maintained?
What's that?
Why would it overflow if it's properly maintained?
How would it be, or is it?
Yeah.
Well, there wouldn't be a lot of maintenance for that overflow because the water treatment chamber that we have goes in is part of the system before it goes into the galleries. So we should be we're going to collect all that material is going to be in here in this one chamber, right? So once the water comes into this gallery system, it's relatively clean, and then that, for the most part, on the everyday operation, is just going to infiltrate into the ground and go into the water table, which is clean water. But in a large storm event, this level inside the galleries might rise up to the level where it'll start overflowing inside this chamber here. So then you'll start seeing water come into this pipe into Orinoco Lane. So normally you won't see almost any water coming through that pipe into Orinoco Lane, except in a large storm event, when things start to bypass, and then you'll see some water trickling out of into Orinoco Lane.
And the responsibility is all up to the association?
Correct. We have an operation and maintenance manual that we have on the drawings, but we also do a document, and we file that with the planning and zoning and put it on the land records also. Okay?
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
This is yours.
Yeah.
So the third and final one I'd like to address, I call it Peters Lane. Peters Lane is owned by JRB Holding Company. It's a 10-acre parcel. It came before your commission maybe a year or two ago for a 4-lot subdivision. As part of this settlement, it was a 4-lot, single-family subdivision. As part of this settlement, we removed one of the homes, so it's a 3-lot subdivision with 3 homes on it. Again, it is part of a settlement of an overall case, but I think that you do have jurisdiction over this because it's, again, in the upland review area. So I'm not asking for a permit. We're not filling anything in the wetlands. We're not disturbing the wetlands. But your commission has jurisdiction to look at it and to review it because there is wetlands within the 250 feet. So with that, I have 2 experts that I'd like to just have you go over it, and then you can ask them the specific questions. So Peters Lane is 10 acres, and it's behind the 15-acre piece of James Farm Road, okay? So right now, the 2 experts I'd like to have, Mr. Kenny will explain to you where the wetlands are located, and then Jason Edwards is the engineer who designed the 3-lot subdivision, and he will go over those issues with you. Again, I'm not asking you guys for any permits. We're not disturbing these wetlands. I just want you to understand what we're doing in that area because you do have jurisdiction because it's in the upland review area. So long as it doesn't have an adverse, a significant adverse impact on those wetlands, then you would be able to approve it if it were an application. And so I just want you to be comfortable with that. So let me start with Mr. Kenny, so you know what we're talking about as far as the wetlands itself. Bill?
Can I ask a question before he starts? Just to clarify, because you said it's behind James Farm Road, but that's just a coincidence. They're not related The property owners, James Farm Road had no wetland impact, right? We said that's just zoning.
Yeah.
So this is just a coincidence that
Yeah,
it
one
happens
is a
to be,
15-acre parcel.
right?
And this is a separately owned 10-acre
That's what I'm
parcel.
saying, it's separately.
Oh,
owned.
coincidence, yeah.
Coincidence, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I just
I
want to
didn't hear
make
your word.
sure that they're not related proposals in any way, okay.
In fact, the Roosevelt Forest separates them two. I think it extends all the way over to James Farm. But the site on this north is going up to the top left here. Peters Lane is along the bottom of the page. There is a somewhat pie-shaped property and a very large forested wetland, and the Roosevelt Forest borders the property here. That wetland, there's a small stream that comes in, Cemetery Pond Brook, that comes in here and flows to the north in this area. And this is another small stream flowing this way to the east. These two merge and head that way. But the forested wetland comes into the site right in here. So you end up with your upland review area that extends in this direction and extends in this direction. And it's 250 feet wide here. So there's only a very small spot there that doesn't fall within your review area. It also extends out to here, and you have your review area here. The site is a forested, not only is the wetland forested, but the upland area is forested. There's a upland knoll here, and the ground pitches down to the east, to the north, and to the west. So you have a high point here, and another high point here, and this high point pitches down to the east, to this wetland area. We were retained in, I think, 2020 to map the wetlands on the property. There was previously before you a 4-lot subdivision. We were not part of that proposal, but the wetland scientist, wildlife biologist, soil scientist Eric Davison prepared a wetland review report for that proposal. I've reviewed his report. I have been on the site because I flagged the wetlands, and I also have reviewed the proposed development. Through Eric's work, he did identify a vernal pool in this portion of the wetland. Vernal pools are special breeding habitat for some amphibians, such as the wood frog and a spotted salamander. He did find evidence of breeding of those two species, which are vernal pool breeding species. They are relatively common, and you find them throughout the state. When you have vernal pools, those species are common in vernal pool habitat, and you do find them throughout the state. Clemens and Calhoun, authors of a publication from 2002, they produced a publication on how to develop land and at the same time protect vernal pools. So they came up with best management practices for protecting vernal pools. There's two major things that are included in that publication. One is to protect what they call the vernal pool envelope. That's the first 100 feet of land that extends out from the vernal pool itself. And you're primarily, by protecting that, you're protecting the shade that comes from the trees that are growing in that zone and the water quality that activities that happen in that zone are likely to have the greatest effect on water quality for the pool, which the water quality is critical to maintain that for the breeding. So you have a 100-foot zone, the vernal pool envelope, and then beyond that is the critical, what they call the critical terrestrial habitat, and in that publication they extend that out to 750 feet, and you want to focus in that zone to just minimize the amount of development. And they use thresholds of 25% to keep your amount of development below that threshold. There's no activity proposed within that 100 feet of the pool, and there, I believe, in Eric's report, he indicated that with the 4-lot subdivision, the percent of development was going to increase from 10 to 12%. So with this 3-lot development, it's even much less. That's within the critical terrestrial habitat, out 750 feet from the pool. So it's a very small increase in the area development that falls within that critical terrestrial habitat. Jason Edwards, the project engineer and surveyor, will discuss the drainage, the proposed drainage that's included with this development, as well as the proposed septic system. So since the activities are more than 100 feet from the vernal pool, and generally more than 100 feet from the wetlands as well, they're about 85 feet from the wetland on this side. There's about 100 feet through here, except for a pinch point where they're about 55 feet, and about 90 feet from the wetland on this side. And with the drainage design that he's proposed, that will help to control the quantity of stormwater runoff as well as the quality. And then with the septic system that's proposed, so that any discharge from the septic discharge on the property will be properly cleaned in accordance with the health code. That between all of those measures for both the septic treatment, stormwater management, and the minimal amount of development and its separation distance from the wetlands, due to all those reasons, it's my professional opinion that this development can be accomplished without adversely affecting the wetlands that are present on and immediately adjacent to the property.
Thank you. I just wanted to tell the commission, with the 3-lot subdivision, what we have proposed is to deed 6 acres, including the vernal pool and all around it, to the town of Stratford as open space. So that area is going to be deeded actually to the town. In addition, there's a corner of Lot 2 that will have a conservation easement on it. So those are the 2 measures also that we've utilized to protect the wetlands in this particular area. I just wanted you to know. So out of the 10 acres, there will be 3 homes that will own approximately 4, and then the rest, the 6 acres, will be deeded to the town of Stratford. So let me have Jason Edwards. He's an engineer. He can go over with you the actual drainage, septic, and any questions you may have on the actual development of this. So after this commission here's this proposal, we would then have to go to the planning commission because it's a subdivision. Same thing with James Farm Road. So after this commission, it goes to the planning commission, and they evaluate, different than you guys do, but they evaluate the zoning issues. So having said that, we start always with the Wetlands Commission. But anyway, I have Mr. Jason Edwards to go over that with you.
Good evening. So Jason Edwards, for the record, J. Edwards and Associates, Engineers, Surveyors, 227 Stepney Road, Easton. My firm merged with the firm that prepared the 4-lot subdivision plan earlier this year. That was Spath, Bjorklund and Associates. So we've taken over the project, and those engineers that were involved then are still involved now. They're still part of the firm. What we're proposing is 3 lots. We've got 3 individual building sites, 3 individual septic systems, access driveways, grading, et cetera. Each lot is roughly I think it's a 1,700 square foot house footprint. They've served by a septic system that is adjacent to each property. We've directed the runoff from all impervious areas, including the roof and driveways, go into a rain garden on each lot. that is sized to accommodate up to a 100-year storm. We have a reduction of total peak flow from the site of about 1 CFS, I think, from pre-construction at a 100-year storm. I believe the town only requires a 25-year storm, so we do exceed that. We've got some limited grading around each driveway to just accommodate the house site. I think at the maximum we're showing about 4 to 6 feet of fill on this site around the front of the house. Everything else is very close to that grade. We've got proposed wells to service, provide water to each house. So that kind of gives you the layout of the site. We've also prepared an erosion control and sediment control plan. We're proposing to have silt fence along the limited disturbance down gradient on each lot, which would be here, here, and then here. We've got temporary sediment traps located here. I think there's one over here. We've also got concrete washout locations for during construction, as well as stockpile areas identified on each site. We've also got in our engineering report, there is a maintenance, stormwater maintenance and management plan. We identify monitoring schedule and then identify a site monitor needs to be designated. We do have some limited landscaping identified on here. This was carried over from the 4-lot subdivision that was presented previously. It's very limited. I think these plants were at the request of the commission at the time, but we've got a few trees for screening on the west side, as well as a couple of other, find the designations on here. Oh, yeah. Red maples here, a few red maples here, and then a few over here. And then really the rest of the plan set is details, pollution control plan, testing results. We did extensive soils testing was done on the site for septic and stormwater. We do have all the septic calculations sized for, I believe, 4-bedroom homes. And these are just construction details. And really the rest of it is really construction details. I think at this point, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I do. How big are the septic systems?
They vary.
Are they using TPs, galleys, or?
These are actually, we're proposing, they're called a mantis system.
Okay.
It's like a sand filter. They're more of a new technology that's come
Yeah.
through. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they basically are cardboard, I think, with in fabric with sand in between, and they're like fins, and they
Yeah.
have an air system that feeds them that helps the bacteria break down, I guess.
Mhm.
But the lengths, I can tell you, are they vary based on the health code. So, lot 1 is 55 feet long.
Are those 1,200-gallon tanks? Or?
For a 4-bedroom, they would be 1250s.
Yeah, okay. And they have enough room for the galleys and the TPs?
Yes, there's plenty of room, yes.
Any other questions?
Was there a public hearing the last time? You said this was approved? It was proposed?
It was proposed.
This particular 3-lot subdivision has never been proposed. This is part of the settlement that we have with the town. What I had said was there was a prior application on this property for 4 lots. But that's not what we're proposing today.
Right, but the 4-lot subdivision is what was appealed, and that was denied.
I see.
So this would be in substitute for that, so,
What was the grounds for denial, do we know?
I have that, and I
Yeah.
can send that to you if you'd prefer to see that.
Sure.
Okay.
But again, this, this is a global settlement, so on this particular piece, we've reduced it from 4 lots to 3 lots. We've never shown this 3
Right.
lots. This 3-lot proposal never came before you.
Okay.
so, this is Pat Sullivan. you should be reviewing these as if they were applications, but they're not applications. So what we would do, presuming the commission agrees, you would resolve the litigation based on the information that's before you. And then, as Attorney Bellis said, there's, these three cases. There's the Bluebird one, which is Oronoke. That still needs to go to the zoning commission. But it's an inland wetlands case that we're settling here. The 795, which is the one where we're going to get the letter from Kelly basically saying, given the new proposal, that it really doesn't concern inland wetlands, that has to go to the zoning, that has to go to the planning commission for a subdivision. And then this one, which is JRB, which is the Peters Lane property, if the 3-lot subdivision, if it meets your standards, then it also has to go to the planning commission. And what I would recommend is that we do a resolution, so not an approval, but a resolution that would include what we would normally say in an approval. So we would say, these are the plans, these are the, so for instance, when Kelly says, maybe not sugar maples, whatever those conditions are, those be put into the resolution. And then those resolutions are going to move on to the other commissions, and then those resolutions move on to the court. And as Attorney Bellis says, the cases don't get settled unless the court says it's okay, as well. And the public gets to speak if they're interested.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure you were very comfortable with the 3 properties that we are settling, and that's why I presented them in this manner. I hope it wasn't confusing.
No, that's okay. So should we be concerned with the wildlife list and the eastern box turtles then at this point? Yes. Okay. Because I feel like it's our responsibility to be concerned about that vernal pool and the wildlife that were listed.
Yep.
So I would be more concerned, frankly, too, about beyond the construction. So when people do live there and drain their swimming pools and, mow their lawns and fertilize their lawns, et cetera. So what, is it just the distance that would protect that vernal pool?
Well, no, I think I tried to say, maybe I wasn't clear, that there's a conservation easement on one of the properties.
Okay.
So each town has a different conservation easement, but basically in your conservation easement, the homeowner is not permitted to do A, B, C, or D.
Okay.
And in this town.
You did say that. Okay, so that's what you mean by that.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
meant by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
then-
would condition the resolution in the same way that you would condition an approval, which is, we have to have A, B, C, and D. That's fine. I mean, this application, this 500 Peters Lane, is the most substantive of the applications that you're looking at this evening, or the resolutions.
Okay.
So as Attorney Sullivan said, after this commission would make a recommendation on all 3 of the ones that I presented tonight, and then if it's favorable, then next week I go to zoning for Oronoke, and then as Attorney Sullivan said, I have 2 subdivisions, 3 lots here and 3 lots on James Farm Road. That also goes to the Planning Commission. So they typically they ask me, have you gone to the wetlands? And I say, yes, I did. And do you have a favorable settlement report from them? And if I do, then I say, yes, here it is. So my next meeting is zoning. It's next Wednesday for Oronoke. So I don't have anything else to present to any of you on these 3 pieces of property. Council and I, you can speak with your council about the procedure, how you'd like to draft it. All I'm looking for is an approval of our settlement proposal as we outlined to you tonight. That's what I'm looking for. If you have any questions, you can ask me. If you have some comments.
Yeah, I have some staff comments I would like to just go over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pretty quickly, and I will again forward these to you so that you can mull them over as needed. Firstly, in some of the portions of these 3 lots, the silt fencing is depicted within limit of disturbance, and the silt fencing should be serving as exclusionary fencing for the eastern box turtle. And I just want to make sure that we are not disturbing outside of that silt fencing. So if you could just look at the plans and just rectify that as needed.
I'll have Mr. Edwards address
Yep,
that.
yeah, no big deal. And then, I know this is not the 4-lot subdivision that was previous, but could you just go into a little more detail on the drainage easement that's being proposed to be conveyed to the town off of Peters Lane into the vernal pool?
Did you say drainage easement?
Yes, off of Peters Lane. I just didn't see any infrastructure proposed and just wanted to understand what that was.
Jason Edwards for the record. That was, as part of the 4-lot subdivision, it was proposed, there's a catch basin here, and there's an outlet here, and that original 4th lot came right through here. So to eliminate the runoff issue that was being created there, they were piping that and then discharging it through this drainage easement. They were redirecting it. I didn't see a need for that anymore, that piping or that, drainage pipe work or rerouting of the drainage. So I re-eliminated the piping from the map. The easement I left on because I didn't know if there was other reasons for it that I wasn't aware of. So I think it could be removed if that's
Okay.
what you think.
If you could confer with the town engineer on that, just to reach some resolution on that, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. And then I didn't see, I saw the subsurface, or saw the septic system layout, but I didn't see the subsurface stormwater detention that was mentioned in the engineering report. And is that because it is actually there's just the rain gardens? Okay, if you could rectify the language in there, it's just kind of confusing when you're reading through the engineering report. And then my next comment was on the rain gardens because I didn't think that they were mentioned in the engineering report. So I guess I'm not even going to touch on that, but I'll email you the comment regardless, just to make sure that it's rectified in the engineering report. And then if you could depict the location of offsite wells for 650 and 670 Peters Lane, I just want to make sure with Lot 1 septic system that we're not in an unacceptable radius with those wells, because I know that they are on their own wells. So I just want to make sure that we're not causing any offsite conflicts, potential contamination issues. The proposed conservation easement, there's an arrow pointing to it. I think I know what is being proposed. It's that you're carving out that wetland boundary, and I think I want to say it's Lot 2 off the top of my head. If you could just make clear that it is that boundary. I think we all know that, but just to make that clear. Planting schedule notes 22 eastern red cedars, but I've only saw 5 on the plan, so just rectify either you're giving us 5 or 22, whichever way you're going to go, just to make that clear. And then the hydrogeological assessment that was conducted by WSP for the 4-lot subdivision, that was included in the application, and I just wanted to make sure that their assessment of the property, the assessment of the development, and their recommendations, make sure that's still valid for what is being proposed. I just didn't see any clarification on whether
This is less.
it is less. I know, but there's some changes in the configuration of the layout, so I just wanted to make sure that their assessment was still valid for this purpose, if you could.
So I have no problem with any of the, I don't know if you had any more comments.
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
Just
I
2
didn't
more.
mean to cut you off. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if there was a cut-fill analysis that you've prepared for the site, for just any regrading, et cetera. I saw there was some grading, so just, and then again, the same with Orinoak Lane. Any proposed town trees that might be along Peters Lane that you're looking to remove as part of the driveway cut-ins, just call those out. And that's it.
So, yeah, I have no problems with any of your comments, and if you want to put them, as Attorney Sullivan said, as conditions of the approval or part of the settlement, I don't see any issues with anything that any of you have said. So, if that's the case, I would be looking for a recommendation that the settlement is agreeable to this commission with the conditions that you've articulated. Conditions are comments, some of them are comments, yeah. Thank you very much. I have nothing else unless you do.
Yes.
Oh, I missed one.
So, with the construction, There's a fair amount of stone in this, rocks, mounds, et cetera, so there'd be blasting.
I was not aware of any blasting, but the blast, if there's any blasting, the state statute says that it goes through your town fire marshal, and we have to give him a plan. It doesn't go to the Wetlands Commission.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't have a plan for you, if there is any, yeah.
Except if there's acid that runs off from it, that could affect.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any, though, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
on this project.
Yeah, you won't be aware till you.
No, usually they hammer these little jobs. Yeah. If it's a big, yeah.
Okay, commissioners, you have any further questions? All right, we have, you feel you have enough information tonight, or do you want to, in lieu of Kelly's questions, do you feel we need to table this?
I'll second the motion.
I didn't hear.
Whoa,
I can't hear you. Can you turn your mic on?
turn your mic on, Doctor.
I'd like to make a recommendation to make a resolution to accept the three proposals, or do we have to address each one separately, or?
Well, I think that we should take just some time to draft the resolution, but what I would appreciate from this commission, if you're so inclined, is to ask for those positive resolutions to be drafted so that we can incorporate all of the information that they've provided to us, all the comments that were made, and all of Kelly's, comments or conditions with regard to the resolutions. And then I can move forward with those resolutions to both the other commissions and then to the court. That would be the way that I think we should proceed, but I'm happy to take comments or questions.
I just have a question. After those resolutions are drafted, will this commission be able to review them before they move on out of this commission?
Well, normally I would say yes, so, but I'm not looking to slow this process any. So what I would say is, why don't we draft the resolutions? We'll bring them back to the commission the next time, but we'll still be able to present to the other commissions that we're making positive recommendations. Would that work for you?
Is that all right with everyone? So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all very much, and I appreciate your courtesy of listening to me.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is 2022-20, the 5-lot residential subdivision and associated infrastructure, 630 James Farm Road. Nobody's here?
No, this is just to accept the
We're-
application
yeah.
as complete.
I make a motion that we just accept it. Makes a motion.
Make a motion, will we accept it?
John makes a motion, Dennis seconds it. All in favor? Aye. It's accepted. Okay, the next order of business, violation, clear cutting inland wetlands and upland review area without the benefit of a permit. Can't believe we don't have an easel item?
Good evening. My name is Attorney Carl Glad. I represent the owner, Willie McAllister.
We have a violation for clear cutting of trees in the inland wetlands upland review area. As some background, Mr. McAllister purchased this property roughly a year and a half or so ago. There had been approval to build one lot on this property in 1983, and that clearly has lapsed. When Mr. McAllister purchased the property, he had those original maps and undertook to determine if he could still build on that property. And so that is currently the situation. The property has been nothing built, no application to build a home or any other homes on this property. In that process, he did remove some trees. Ms. Kerrigan had identified that could potentially be a violation. Mr. McAllister has enlisted a surveyor he also had Mr. Kinney, who was here earlier, map the wetlands because the earlier map obviously was from the 80s and may not have been reflective. That was done, and there's been a survey now done to determine where in the either wetlands or upland review area there's potentially trees removed. And so I will turn it over to our surveyor who is here, who actually can identify where on the map the trees were removed, and this is the most recent survey of the property.
You want his name?
For the record, my name is Fred D'Amico. I'm the surveyor and civil engineer on the project. Basically, we had the wetlands flag. The pink is actually the wetlands. We actually located all the flags up to approximately this point, and at this point it crosses over the CLMP power line. So we didn't finish the locations here. It's flagged, but we didn't actually physically locate it because it was so thick. But I believe the only area he wrote, it was already cleared in this area, which is actually it's upland soil, but obviously the whole property is upland review area. If you take the setback, it basically encompasses the whole property. So this area was already cleared prior to him purchasing it, but he did go in and clear an area over here, which is also in the upland area, but in the upland review area. Mr. Kinney did flag the previous wetlands map, showed this wetlands come like this and then end here and go back, and then it started here and came out like this and went back up. It wasn't connected. The new wetlands soil scientist actually seem to think that it connects. It's been dry, so he actually showed a sketch that showed, do you have the sketch? It shows like an intermittent stream connecting them. However, I don't know if Mr. McAllister gave the soils report to the town yet, but you can see that he's got through this area here, which is this area, it looks like a intermittent stream. If you go out there, there's obviously no water running right now. I've never seen water there. And it's kind of, the whole area is so flat, so thick, it's kind of difficult to see where everything is unless you actually go up to the different flags and orientate yourself, because it's almost impossible to figure out where you are. But we did, like I said, we located all the flag numbers up to approximately this point here. So I'm confident that the areas he did clear is out of the wetlands. However, it is in the regulated area, so he would need a permit, which now would be an after-the-fact permit. And eventually, we will be putting together a plan to either a permit for either one or two houses.
Any questions, commissioners?
Yes, what size area are we talking about that was clear cut? Like acres or square?
Probably 100 by 100 area, or 100 by 150 area.
I see.
So it's 10,000 square foot, 15,000 square foot.
All right, and it was on this protected area, but you're saying that you didn't see the flags or something?
He saw the flags, but I believe he thought because he was in the upland review, because he was not in the wetlands, I think he assumed that he was able to cut the trees in the dry area.
I see.
Not realizing that it's still a regulated area.
Which the first map I got when I bought the property showed the details from the driveway pulling around the wetlands and showing where the house was. So, and it was already cleared at that time. So I guess when they cleared it, but just never finished building. They never started the house. So when I got the map, I'm thinking, okay, here it goes. It has everything laid out. The house is laid out here. So that's the exact spot that we cleared out. So it wasn't like I just went in there and just said, let me guess, or you know, take trees down. It wasn't like that. It was basically like the house is on the map that I have. So the original map, house and everything's on there, and this is what they proposed for me to buy. So I'm thinking, okay, it's a house, it's a piece of land in northern Stratford, and it ended up being something different.
I see. So it wasn't verified, no?
No, but it was approved at one time. So it was an approved building lot. So they I guess they got approved and everything, but then it lapsed, like Carl said.
He did, when he purchased the property, he did get a copy of a portion of the wetlands map in the proposed plan, and he tried to follow that, assuming that was right. Unfortunately, that map, like I said, obviously was lapsed. It was from 20, 30 years ago.
And I actually called Kelly. I asked her to come down. She didn't say. It was not like I was trying to hide anything. It had nothing to do with that. It was just I thought it was stay out of the wet areas, build in the dry areas, and it should be fine. And again, I even went and paid extra and got the map done because I started thinking, when I talked to her, she was like, well, it changes and stuff like that, and I wasn't thinking about that. So I went and paid and got a whole new survey and everything done just to make sure I was in the right. So.
Prior to the clear cutting, were they working off a surveyor's map prior to it?
Yes.
And is the most recent surveyor's map, or was it?
When I bought, when I closed on the land, that's what they gave me as this is your building lot, you can buy. So the homeowner, I guess they moved out to Florida, said, I have a building lot, do you want to buy it? And I said, yes. So I bought it thinking that was already approved, because he said it was approved already, and it's easy to get it approved again, because it was already approved at one time. So I said, okay. I bought it thinking like it was all ready to go, and it's obviously not.
Yeah, and the flagging, you mentioned that they couldn't see the flagging in the area when they started clear cutting, or was it just the flagging was because of vegetation? They couldn't see where the markers were.
I cut inside the markers, so I never went into the wetlands. So it's not in the wetlands from the existing map. So I went off the some flags that were there, like you'd find, you know, one on one side. So the majority around the house where when they thought they were going to put the house there, you can kind of find those. But we didn't go beyond that. Like we didn't go beyond the power lines. There's power lines behind it. We figured like it wasn't really necessary to go that far into the property because I don't want to touch that kind of stuff down there.
Right.
I was just trying to go up on the first part of the property, maybe get one house on there, maybe two.
To orient yourself to the map, so this would be obviously James Farm Road. There's a lot here with a house, and so this is a long cut. There's another lot here with the house as well.
Would it be pertinent? Would we be able to see what you saw? Like, where's that map that we keep referring to? You have that?
The current map?
No, the old one, the first one.
The first map? I may have it in my emails, yes. I don't know if I have it printed out. If you'd like to provide copies, I can share that with the commission.
Okay.
But I do appreciate that you're coming before the commission tonight. I did want to just point out that although you are claiming that you have only cleared in the upland review area, how did you get there? You had to cross the wetland to get there. So obviously there had to be some clearing in the wetland, right?
This was already cleared. So the other map would show you there's the proposed driveway swings through here, and then the house would be here. So this had been clear cut prior to, or I wouldn't say clear cut, but it had been cleared prior to Mr. McAllister doing any cutting.
Including the wetland?
Well, so, right, and this, we don't know because this was not the property, but on the map, as Frank said, this was not connected, and I believe they thought they were
They cleared an area, basically a driveway. They came down this way, then went across, and then this is where we cleared. I believe all this area here There's no fresh, there's no indication of any fresh cuttings.
And the map he had did not connect the two, as we just discussed earlier, did not connect the two. So they, again, this was probably done 20 years ago. He made it so that as part of it.
And the neighbors, they said the same exact thing. They said it was cleared prior to me getting it. So if you look down James Farm, the house on the right-hand side, they actually said, I was there the other day just kind of looking at everything. He said it was actually, they were cutting it before I even owned it. So I don't know, they were saying some other guy was back there with chainsaws and stuff too. I don't know. I don't know if that was on my property, but I know it's towards the back end of that property.
So it was cleared prior to the purchase of the house?
Yes, I think, and to be honest, I think when they first got this thing approved, they cleared that area. So then all of a sudden now, that's why you see it. It's like if you look around it, there's trees that are really tall, but not in that area. So basically, I think they went and they cleared everything out.
Okay.
So moving forward, I know I was on the property back in, I want to say May. It's now October. What is the plan? We need some sort of plan moving forward to rectify this. I don't want this lingering any longer. I mean, we also have neighbors that are constantly asking what this restoration plan looks like as well. So, do you guys have a timeline for when you can provide us with something?
We'll probably, I'd say within two or 3 weeks, we'll come in with a new plan that basically shows exactly what we're proposing, with all the wetlands flags on it, and the setback, like I said, encompasses the whole property, so it's going to show that the activity is in the regulated area. So we'll estimate the amount of disturbance in the regulated area, and basically put an application together to propose either 1 or 2 new houses.
And that'll be by November 2nd, the first Wednesday of November, you think?
Assuming like I'd say about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And he won't do any other cutting until after we get an approval, or if we get an approval.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the address for this? I think I know where it is.
Oh, sorry. It's 455 James Farm Road. If you're coming over the Merritt Parkway Bridge, there's the entrance to Harvest Ridge. Then there are 2 houses, and then there's this little sliver to enter down to this property. So Harvest Ridge is down in this area, right? So the electrical wires run here. Harvest Ridge is down here.
Have you located, do you have property markers on your property?
Yeah, we have, well, Fred, I think we have.
What we could do, there is some, you could easily, if you walk down the property, you'll easily see this is cleared through here, so you can walk right down this cleared driveway, and then once you get down here, the wetland flags, it's been reflagged, so you'll see wetland flags with the numbers, and if you have a copy of this wetlands map, that's probably the easiest way of trying to figure out where
Okay.
you are.
But usually, unless things have changed, usually if there's a discrepancy in the property area and somebody has to have it resurveyed, usually there's markers or there's something on the property that delineates where the property, starts and ends. But I don't know if there's anything that's on that property now.
There are some markers, but the problem wasn't really the boundary lines of the entire property. The problem was the actual difference in the wetlands flagging.
Is there a limitation? I mean, would there be any jurisdiction over the previous owner? Was that a violation, or was that done under an approval? Do you know what I mean?
That I'm not aware of. I think that the commission should only be looking at what is currently going on here. Yeah.
Bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, these boundaries are not staked out. This is fairly dense forest area.
So I'm assuming you have all the information to Kelly, so we have it for our next meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that's all we
Is
can do.
everyone okay with that? Okay.
So I'll ask for a motion to table. Dennis?
I'll second it.
Seconded by John. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business, staff report.
All right, so we just spoke with Mr. McAllister on the cease and desist NOV issue, and he'll be before us next month. Lindquist Drive has been put on the back burner as we work through the Curcio properties still. We still have to get on that. So I have no updates on either of those two parcels. And then as far as administrative permits and enforcement actions, no enforcement actions, but I've issued 3 permits since we last met. Application 2022-16A for a patio within the Upland Review area at 5952 Main Street, Putney. That's at the Stratford Veterans Museum. Application 2022-18A, a sanitary sewer extension within the Upland Review area, and that's at the southern terminus of Hilltop Road, and through 245 Hilltop Drive and 286 Highview Drive. And that is due to a failed septic system. The town is extending our sewer line to service that residence. And then 2022-19A, another deck within the Upland Review area on 108 Linton Street. Any questions?
No? All right, so now you already give the administrative permit.
Yeah, I just went right into
Okay.
it, sorry.
Commissioners Forum, anybody would like to say anything? Commissioners Forum, would anyone like to make any comments or anything?
One quick question for the chair. I guess at some point, we're going to have to vote on an alternate chairperson, or is...
No, I'm the vice chair.
Oh, okay.
Tom's just not
I
here.
didn't, yeah.
We thought we might have to because we weren't sure if Ed was coming back, but I don't think we need to. Unless
Okay,
I'm
good.
back.
Okay.
I didn't think I was coming back either, but
I don't know if it has to be on the record, but the event, Kelly, in 2 weeks, is it? Or 1 week? Is it, yeah, anything to add about that? Is anybody going?
you were the only person that emailed me, and then
Oh.
I didn't register you because I wasn't sure if you were actually
Yeah, 'cause it'll be
interested or
better to-
available, but I haven't heard from anyone else
Okay.
as far as registration. But I think registration's still open. I can double check on that if anyone's interested. It's the Connecticut Association of Inland Wetlands and Conservation Commissions. I might have that backwards, but it's Kakiwick is what it's called. There's a Saturday each fall where they have like an annual conference for conservation commissions and inland wetlands commissions. I don't have the date off the top of my head, but yeah, it's in, I sent it in an email previously, and I could resend that if you'd like.
where is it being held?
Somewhere centrally in the state at a hotel. It's on a Saturday. It is a Saturday.
I've attended ones in the past. They're very informative.
Yep, they are really
If
good.
you could go, it's tough, I know, but it's very informative.
Okay, well, email me if you're interested still. I'll send out another reminder to everyone, just in case, all right?
Okay, as for,
So under Commissioners Forum, last time we met, I had brought up kind of a review of, to be able to have a discussion about Kelly's responsibilities and, the demands on this position, both from our committee, from conservation. Kelly was at a forum on last Friday, on some urban forestry. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And I thought it would be instructive for us to be able to understand all of her responsibilities and what the needs are of that position. And so, yeah, I know that we're not in a position to make any determinations, but I think there needs to be a forum to really understand that. I mean, between what's going on, just reviewing this stack, right, in the detail and creating the reports have to take forever. And I know that it's hard to keep up with all the emails, the questions, there's just a lot more community involvement than there has ever been before. And so if we could ask Kelly to prepare for us, for the next time we meet, a breakdown of what it is her responsibilities are, or the responsibility of not you, but of the position, and both for us and the Conservation Committee and the tree warden, and all these different aspects. So perhaps we can make a recommendation to town leadership regarding making sure that Kelly has what she needs to get the job done and to be able to support the needs of the community.
You need staff.
Well, historically, there was always two people in this position.
Right.
Bill McCann, we had Steve Danzer.
I think at one
They
point
were
there was
together.
even three.
And, I mean, I know Kelly does a tremendous job, but
Right.
the last few years, it's only been one person, right? Before you was
Since Brian Carey.
Brian,
So back to the early 2010s.
yeah, it was,
2009, it's one
Right.
person.
And the demands have only increased, and
Oh, yeah.
will increase. So again, I think that if we're gonna look at it, we need to look at it as holistically and have information in front of us, and then we can have perhaps an open discussion and make a recommendation.
very good. Thank you, Doctor. I'll ask for an adjournment.
Make a
Dennis?
motion to adjourn?
Second? By Joe. All in favor? Aye.